Hey everybody, I'm Kelcie and this is Cassidy and Katie. And thanks so much for coming to our YouTube channel where we talk about the course Write Your Way to Freedom. A lot of people have a lot of questions and we have three different unique answers from three people who have actually taken the course, which is more than we can say about 90% of the people on Reddit. So we hope that you find this information helpful. Feel free to browse all of our questions, which you can find in the notes below. And if you have any other questions that you have, feel free to leave them and we'll try and get to them in one of our next recordings. So the question for today is, how did we pick our niches? And we are all three in very different niches, so it'll be super interesting. I think the context that's most important here first is there's two different ways to niche that a lot of people don't think about. You can niche horizontally or you can niche vertically. And when you niche horizontally, you basically say like, I write all these different types of copy in one particular industry. Whereas when you niche vertically, you do, I write this one specific kind of copy across all industries or multiple industries. And so when I first got started, it was one of the summers that California just had like crazy wildfires, and so did Montana, and so did like the Pacific Southwest, and all of the smoke just kind of emerged into like one space, and that space was where I was living in Denver, Colorado. And we actually had worse air quality that summer than like Shanghai. Like we were one of the absolute worst air quality places that you could be living. None of us went outside, which if you're from Colorado, you know, it's kind of an abomination to not go outside. And so, especially in the summer, but we basically, it was kind of a moment of climate dread where I was like, if I'm going to actually like live on this planet and also try and have kids, I have to do more. And I can't just keep standing by and like hoping people fix this and that this tends to get better. I like want to do something. And so I was basically like in Sarah's course by then, or like shortly after that. I just kind of knew that it was in my heart that I went into it. And we haven't talked about our Enneagram types yet. I'm an Enneagram 8, which is a challenger, which also means that like once I make a decision, I'm like, obviously it's in my gut and I know what I'm doing and I'm never going to think about it again. And it's like an easy decision for me. So I will say that the second I decided I'm going to write about sustainability, I just moved with it. And I can think about different points in my life where I would have been like, oh, I want to write about for like women empowerment brands, or oh, I want to write for fitness brands. That those were like the things that were dominating my life, which is to say that like, don't stress out too much about this question. You can change your niche whenever your personality type changes. That's no big deal. So all of that is to say, I now write for sustainable B2Bs. It took me a little while to get there, but because I was writing it all across sustainability and all different types of copy, but I've slowly niched down over the last couple of years, and I write for sustainable B2Bs and I help them with case studies, white papers, and blog posts.
I love that. Can you explain B2B a little bit? Because that's a thing I did not know before joining the copywriting world.
Yeah. So there's like a handful of different sectors, which we don't have to go into all of them. But B2B means that you work with businesses that sell to other businesses. So a good example of that is like a paper company that sells to different offices. That's a B2B organization. And I picked B2B specifically because of the type of copy that I'm writing. It tends to cost a little bit more. It tends to be more expensive products that are being sold. And for me, it came down to B2Bs were able to have bigger impact in the sustainability space. It is so awesome to see so many people converting to like more sustainable, like shampoo bars, or like no longer using plastic bags. But I really wanted to impact stuff that was like, here are hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland that I'm impacting with the writing that I'm doing.
I love that. I also love the little nod to personalities and Enneagrams. So I'll go next. I'm an Enneagram 4, so it should be a surprise to no one that I was a fine arts major in college and thought I was going to be an interior designer for a hot minute. But none of that ever really materialized in any sort of like career that felt right. And so when I started copywriting, I was like, well, obviously I'm going to write for creatives and designers because this is a language that I know how to speak. I went to grad school for interior design for a minute until the recession crushed that. But so that was my niche. So I love that you explained, Kels, the idea of like niching horizontally versus vertically, because I started horizontally. I was like, I'm going to write for interior designers. I'll do blogs, I'll do websites, I'll do social media captions, anything an interior design firm or business would need. I'm your girl. And I loved it and partnered with some amazing clients. And over time, what happened with me, and I've seen it happen with a lot of other copywriters too, is you start to really get clear about the type of copy you really love writing. And then there's other types that you just maybe get sick of, or it's not as much fun or as profitable as you wanted it to be. And so I'm actually in the process of shifting my niche from a horizontal niche to a more vertical niche. I've landed on this like VIP week-long service that I really love offering. And because the service itself is so honed, I'm actually zooming out to serve a little bit wider of an audience, which, like we've talked in other videos, that's the most amazing thing I think about this is you get to keep kind of shape shifting your own business to fit you as a person grow and become interested in new things and find your sweet spots and your skills. And you really continue to hone your ideal audience and what really lights you up. And so I'm in the midst of that shift right now, and it's super exciting.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship, and as someone who was not an entrepreneur before I bought Write Your Way to Freedom and started copywriting, it came as a surprise to me. It's just that every single year, your business looks different than it did the year before. And it's not even that it's intentionally different because you watch the clock roll around to the new year and you were like, I'm going to make some changes. Like, it's just this constant process of like following your curiosity and making tweaks and discovering something that you really like and deciding that you want to do more of it. And then just over time, like your business becomes even more aligned with like you and your passions. And it's just like this really beautiful thing. Okay. How did I pick my niche? I am an Enneagram type 3. Don't know what that means about my niche other than that I crave, I guess, success. And what do we want to call it?
Finance feels like a very 3 niche.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah. So yeah, my copywriting niche is personal finance. And to give you a little bit of background, I do have an MBA, which you could say aligns perfectly with finance. But honestly, when I got my MBA, I felt so lost. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my career, had a bachelor's degree in public relations. The two felt completely disconnected. And I thought after I went to grad school, I would have this epiphany where I just like woke up one day and knew exactly what I wanted to do. That did not happen. I was like even more confused. And I think that's because an MBA is like such a general business degree. Feel like I just got introduced to a bunch of little things. And at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And then I started copywriting. And as I was like working through the module where you figure out what your niche could be, the only thing I could think of was that I felt like I could learn about personal finance all day long and never get sick of it. Around that same time, I was in the process of paying off my student loan debt as quickly as I could. I ended up paying $18K of debt off in 10 months within graduating college. And that mainly just came from not inflating my lifestyle after I got my first full-time job. I gained so much like peace and joy from not having my student loan debt anymore. And I wanted other people to experience that same joy. So yeah, I picked finance as a niche, not really knowing what that entailed. Like my brain only went to financial advisors initially. So that's who I started out writing for. Over the years, my niche like kind of evolved within the finance space. And now I mainly write for what I would call personal finance media brands, where like pretty much all they do is produce content online for everyday people who need help figuring out what bank accounts they're going to use, how to pay off debt, how to manage their money. So it's not like I'm writing for people who have these high net worth clients and they're helping them with estate planning and like more of these big picture kind of things. A lot of my clients are helping like everyday first generation wealth builders, women, people of color, like learn to manage their money. And that to me feels really beautiful. And it's nothing that I could have ever predicted when I first started copywriting. So yeah, that's kind of how I've niched down more within the finance niche over time.
Yeah, I think too, there is to say that like you're going to pick a niche and then you're going to like refine it and refine it and refine it and refine it, which I think too it might be fun for us to share if you guys can think of these examples. Was there anything that you were ever like you wrote it or like you did a test project and you were like, God, no, I'm never going to write this again. Like this is terrible, either for like a horizontal or vertical. Like if you ever ventured outside of any of that.
I've got both.
Kick us off.
Yeah. So I've kind of niched down over the years to where pretty much the only type of copy that I'm writing are blog posts or articles. That's another thing I didn't set out to do intentionally. It's just how my niche has evolved over the years. But whenever I first started copywriting, I did try my hand at a few websites. And there are so many copywriters that love websites. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I think I want to be a website copywriter, do not let my story discourage you. I did one website and quickly found out it was not for me at all. I tried a few more after that just to confirm my initial like guttural vomiting reaction to websites, and that guttural reaction held true. So I do not do website copy at all. Maybe a landing page every now and then if it's for like a specific product or service, but like a full website is not for me. Also, I've tried a lot of different like sub niches. I've like written for a lot of different sub niches within finance. And for a while, when I was just, taking whatever work came along because I wanted the experience and I needed the money, which is a very valid like state of copywriting to be in, I wrote for a few websites that it's pretty much like a day trading, like stock picking. Like there are these websites where they're just like telling you about these day trading services where like you can sign up and they'll tell you 5 stocks to invest in today. And then they'll like text you when to sell and stuff. And as someone who's more of a long-term investor, like very passive, put your money in some ETFs and let them ride, like the Warren Buffett kind of strategy, that did not appeal to me at all. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm writing stuff that I do not believe in whatsoever and would never recommend to anyone. And I don't want my name on this. So I'm going to step back from it. And so those are my 2 examples.
It's so nice to be able to lead with your values too. And like if your company does something that doesn't align with you, you're kind of just like, I have to kind of deal with this because they pay the bills. But as a copywriter, you just have so many more possibilities to basically like say like, no, this isn't aligned with me. I'm going to go find someone else because I don't want to write for this anymore. So yeah, those were really great examples. Katie, do you have any that you want to share? Not to put you on the spot. If you don't, that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm trying to think. Because of who I work with, there was nothing that ever felt like icky to me. Like I could write about like the importance of like home and our spaces all day. I truly think it's important. And I think that's what's partly really fun for me, is I think this is a niche that would be really easy to feel as though it's just kind of like consumerist and shallow and a lot of things like that. And it can be. I think that there would be things that wouldn't feel good within that niche to write about, just kind of like the idea of fast fashion. You can do fast, like home decor, like buying all your stuff on Amazon and then swapping it out in 6 months when it's not on trend anymore. But thankfully, like with the type of designers that I partner with, they are really like committed to sustainability and committed to just really serving clients and designing spaces that will grow with them. So that's exciting. I think what got tiresome to me for a while, and I love, Cassidy, that you have been able to build this amazing business writing blogs, because I feel like that for a lot of copywriters is kind of the thing where they will attack and be like, oh, you're never going to make this kind of money writing blogs. You have to write high conversion copy, like launch copy or sales pages or things like that. So again, if one person is telling you there's a right way to do something, like I'm sure that's not the full picture, no matter what it is, because Cassidy is killing it with a business based entirely off of blog writing. I personally got a little bit tired of writing blogs just because it was constantly like top paint color trends for 2022 or whatever. It just kind of felt like I was doing the same thing again and again. And I could tell that my clients weren't even really excited about it. It was just like the thing they thought they needed to write. And so I did pivot to be more like web copy driven and things like that. And I think as I got more familiar with the niche and what really prompted me to change my own service down away from just even web copy, but more like the core brand messaging, was just seeing how all of these entrepreneurs didn't quite know how to articulate who they are and what they were doing. And so it was almost like we need to rewind a little bit and take care of this foundational stuff before we just worry about writing the copy. So a little bit different response, but another example of just continuing to pivot and shift.
Yeah, I feel like even in this moment, like we're proof that you can build your business off of 2 totally different philosophies, because here I am, like blog posts are my jam. I love them so much. I don't want any website copy. And you're the complete opposite. You're like, give me all the website copy. I don't want blogs. But we're like, we still have successful businesses.
Oh,
Can do
100%.
anything. Yeah.
100%. And I think whenever anyone comes in with a hot take of like, you can't do it this way, I'm going to show you how to do it this way, that's a really good marketing technique, but maybe not like, I mean, you're going to find people who've found a way to be successful at it.
I'm also feeling a little called out right now because I've definitely recently written, like, doesn't writing one white paper sound better than writing 432 blog posts or something like that? And let me just clarify that with Cassidy definitely makes more money than I do right now. So yeah, maybe that's a good point. I'm like thinking about, oh, I should probably rewrite that section on my sales page. But the other thing that you said, Katie, that I think would be good to clarify on is before I got into copywriting, I had zero idea what like tone of voice, brand voice copywriting was. Can you touch a little bit for somebody who's maybe never heard of that niche before? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big piece of web copy, especially because your website is like you putting your stake in the ground and telling people who you are, and its main goal is to draw in like those right fit clients. But what I was finding when I'm asking my clients, who are their clients, who are they trying to speak to, there were the answers a lot of times that you have when you're a brand new entrepreneur. All three of us, I guarantee, have had the response, anyone who will pay me. That's who my client is. Literally anyone who will pay me in my niche. And so that's how it works. That's what it looks like to start a business. But after a year or two, you should be honing in on, okay, who is that person though? Because you will find that there were some clients that weren't worth partnering with. You will find that there were some clients that you like wish you were best friends with. And so like really taking the time to distill down those attributes of people you don't love working with and people you adore working with, figuring out who they are, what they value, and then seeing where that Venn diagram overlaps with who you are and what you value as a service provider or a business. And that is the sweet spot. And so then once you know what that is, and you might not, that's why you can partner with a copywriter or a brand messaging strategist, but that's the sweet spot. And they can help you figure out then what is the language you should be using. Because if we think about it, I always think about it like magazines, right? Like there's a huge difference in the way National Enquirer writes versus, and the language they use versus People Magazine versus Real Simple versus entrepreneur magazines. You know, there's different language. Or like, because I'm in the interiors niche, I always will use the example of like Better Homes and Gardens versus Architectural Digest. They use very different language. They use very different verbiage because their target audience is different. And so that is a lot of what I focus on now, is helping designers figure out and creatives figure out who is that target audience, what do they really value, and how can you speak to that in a way that's really compelling. Because when you're trying to serve everyone and speak to everyone, your message gets super muddied. And that is the difference, frankly, between getting paid 1 or 2 cents a word on Fiverr because you'll write for anyone, and having a really profitable business where you speak exactly to who you want to partner with and people will pay you good money.
I feel like good brand messaging is one of those things that like you don't realize it when you're reading it unless you're like in this space and know, but it's like if you've ever landed on a web page and it makes you laugh and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this person is speaking directly to me." And you're like getting all these visuals in your brain and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I love this thing so much." That is the byproduct of someone being really, really good at brand messaging, which is what you do, Katie. The world needs more people like you.
Thank you. No, you're totally right. And I remember reading a study that, of course, like made my heart go pitter patter because Anthropologie is one of my favorite stores. I actually had an internship building their store displays for a minute. I adore them. But this was a marketing study that like they spend more time and energy really figuring out who their ideal client is. Like the avatar they have for her is like a book. They know what she wears, they know what she eats for dinner, where she works. I mean, this isn't just like we're making clothes for women. They know who this person is. And that is like what allows them to like have such a unique store experience. And so yeah, brand voice, brand messaging like is the verbal written version of that. Just like getting so crystal clear on like, does your client swear? Do they want to laugh? Are they more buttoned up? Are they serious? You know, and so just like really knowing all of those things. You're totally right, Cassidy. Like when you find those websites, like that's really good brand messaging.
So I think all this is to say too, that we're bringing up brand voice because like I had never heard of brand voice. Like I knew what it was, but I didn't know that somebody actually sat down and would like create this book that was like, here's how we talk. Because the companies I worked at didn't have them, but could have really used them. At least not the first one where I was actually in the marketing department. But this is to say too, that like you're going to stress about picking a niche most likely. And also your niche might actually be something that you don't even know about yet, and you'll stumble into it. If you haven't heard of brand voice, if you haven't heard of launch copy, if you haven't heard of white papers, if there's like a huge list of things that you can niche into that you have probably never even heard of. So picking what feels right in the moment isn't a bad strategy to move forward with, because you can change it. You don't have to stay. You're dating it. You're not married to it.
Totally. And one of the best analogies I've heard is like, if you're feeling paralyzed about making that choice, because this is part of Write Your Way to Freedom has an online group where you can like post questions and things. And I guarantee, I assume you guys would agree with me, back me up on this. Like the number one thing people drop in is like, I don't know how to pick a niche. Help me pick, and like want all this affirmation. And it just is this thing that really gets people frozen. And I get it, because you're making a website, you're doing all the work. It's a lot to invest in. And also this analogy that I heard that I thought was so brilliant was, it's impossible to steer a car that isn't moving. So like the only thing you need to do is figure out how to put it in motion. And then from there, it's relatively easy to make these adjustments, where if you are trying to steer a car and get it to turn when it's in park, it's impossible. So like, to your point, Kels, just like pick something that you're excited about and just know and trust that it will grow and shift with you to be the best fit. And people have legit scrap niches and taken complete 180s too in the group. None of us have been that drastic, but it happens. And people are like, oh man, I did this and I hated it. And then I figured out I loved this and now I'm obsessed with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there are quite a few finance writers in Write Your Way to Freedom, but one specifically that I'm very close with, she started out in the outdoor niche, wrote in that space for probably at least a year, and she still enjoyed it, but she just felt like she was kind of like you were, Katie, with interior design. Like there are only so many times you can write about outdoor socks, for example. So she pivoted into the finance niche and has been crushing it. And Kelcie, I think you also gave a good analogy, like you're just dating it, you're not married to it. You can always change it. So just pick whatever feels easiest in the moment and then follow your curiosity, and it'll change and adapt over time. And that's like a feature, not a glitch. Like it's good to adapt and change.
I think too, the other thing that I can link in here is there is someone who's been a part of the course for a long time. She's the person who got me into the course, Kristen, and she did a hard pivot. So if that's something that you're like, well, I want to see that, like you could start writing this and then do this and still be successful, I think she's an amazing example of that. So we'll link her success story in these show notes for you too, if that's something if you're really going down a rabbit hole and having a hard time. First off, like take a walk. Second off, you can listen to Kristen's video while you take that walk, and then just know that like it's all going to be fine. It'll all be great.
I thought of Kristen right away too. That's perfect.
Thanks so much for tuning into our video today. I'm Kelcie and this is Katie and Cassidy. And together we talk about what it's like to be in the program Write Your Way to Freedom to help you determine if it's the right fit for you or not. If anything from the videos today resonated with you or made you decide like, yes, this is it, I want to sign up, it would mean the world to us if you used our referral code. For full transparency, we do get a little bit of a monetary kickback every time somebody signs up that we split between the three of us. And we also make a $100 donation to World Central Kitchen, which you can find out more information on via the link in our notes. So thanks so much for tuning in, and check out the rest of our questions. We've probably answered the one that you have. Bye.